Let's review the process for creating a non-residential project in the CHEERS Registry. To perform this process, you'll need to log into the CHEERS Registry with a Rater user account. Once you log in, navigate to the Project Creation tool and click the drop-down menu button. This shows the options of the types of projects you can create. In this video, we'll be discussing non-residential projects. You can select to open a new non-residential project from the drop-down menu by clicking on either the non-residential option from the Addition/Alteration section or by selecting Non-Residential from the New Construction section. Both of these options go to the same page as the next step in the process. As you can see, the new non-residential project page looks similar to the other forms pages on the registry. We've designed these to look similar to the CEC's forms, so nothing here should look too out of the ordinary. However, please note that this page was created by CHEERS, not the CEC. We'll use this page to collect information from you about the project to be able to generate the documents that you'll need to take your project to completion. Unlike on the residential side, where the CHEERS Registry can pull from your submitted CF1R or Certificate of Compliance, non-residential projects require user input of the necessary information so the registry can create the materials that you'll be using. That's the purpose of this form. Like we said, this is a single intake form, so it's applicable to all the different code years. To start, open the drop-down menu and pick your relevant code year. For this example, we'll make our new non-residential project for the 2025 code year. Scrolling down, you'll next access the data fields that we'll need to collect per the relevant code year you've selected for your project. Fill in the relevant data fields with the requisite information. Let's take a closer look at a few of these data fields in more detail. Field number 9 asks users about auto-generating unit names. If users choose yes, the system will auto-generate a name for each unit sequentially. Since multifamily buildings have multiple individual dwellings, the yes option here will auto-generate a name for these units, such as 001, 002, etc. If you select no here, you'll be able to name each dwelling unit manually. For the purpose of this example, we'll pick yes. A few more data fields to call special attention to. Fields 11, 12, and 13 are trying to understand which forms are required for the project. Remember, since we can't pull data from a submitted CF1R, you'll need to enter this manually, and we've tried to make this easier for you with this set of questions. Field 11 prompts the user to determine whether the NRCVPLB21 is required. Users can select yes or no. If the form is required, users are then prompted to enter the company name for the installing contractor, as well as the name of the contractor contact directly in fields 12 and 13. As you can see, as you type in the name, matches will appear that you can select from to fill in the data field. Users will need to enter this data for each of the form types that will be required for the project. Scrolling down a bit, we're going to skip past the two commercial buildings options. These data fields work the same as the others, but cover information relevant to the 2022 code. Since our sample project is utilizing 2025 code, they're not relevant to this example. The important thing to understand here is that these fields work the same as the others, even though we're not using them in this example. Let's scroll even further down to Section D on multifamily buildings. Here, we're looking for information about the dwellings in the building. We allow the user to identify groups of dwellings. Multifamily buildings will typically have multiple different dwelling types. For example, the building might offer dwellings that are one bedroom at 900 square feet, one bedroom that are 1,000 square feet, and two bedrooms that are 1,200 square feet. For our purposes, we might categorize those different dwelling types as Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. Each of these may have different sets of requirements, so users can use this space to let the CHEERS Registry know what documents are needed for each of the different types of dwellings, and how many units of each dwelling type there are in the building. So, putting this into practice, users can designate a number of dwellings in a group, then fill in the relevant information from the data fields regarding that group. As we covered in Section A, the data fields for the groups by dwelling type offer space to input if certain documents are required, with accompanying spaces to input the installing contractor company and the installing contractor contact name. Please note that any form that you designate is required, you will need to provide the installing contractor company and contact information for. Let's keep scrolling down. To add a new group of dwelling types, simply click the Add button at the bottom and fill in the information for the new group type. At the bottom, sections E and F, similar to the commercial building sections B and C discussed earlier, do not apply to this particular example, so we don't need to fill them out. However, just like with sections B and C, these would look and function similar to the other sections we've demonstrated in the example. In this case, these sections do not apply to this project because we selected to auto-generate the names of the dwellings. If back in Section A, we had selected to manually name each unit instead of selecting to auto-generate the names of the dwelling units sequentially, Section E is where we would input the names of each dwelling unit in the group. If users select this option, each dwelling unit would need its own specific name, so the relevant documents can be associated with the relevant dwelling. The numbers in this example reflect dwellings in one group, or set. If we were to add a second group for a different type of dwelling, for example, going back to our example scenario of having some one-bedroom dwellings and other two-bedroom dwellings, we would have the option to name them based on the set or group of dwellings by type, which would look like this. The dwellings are now categorized by both group type and unit number. Typically, you won't see this as much, as dwellings in multifamily buildings are often fairly consistent in their dwelling type and what is required for the documents. So, in all likelihood, you will likely do more of your dwelling and naming management in a later part of this process. However, it's still good to know this functionality is available if needed. Once we have the necessary information, click the turquoise pencil icon to sign and save your document. This will bring you into the Site Details page. Because this is a multifamily building, we only have the verification documents. We don't have the NRCC, which is the equivalent of the CF1R. We don't have the NRCI, which is the equivalent of the CF2R. So, in contrast to residential, you'll be dealing with a much shorter list of documents. As you can see, the documents here are labeled by their group, or set, and also the unit number. So we have the documents for Set 1, Unit 1, Set 1, Unit 2, etc. We also have our single form, which is also called our building level form. This document applies to the entire building, whereas the below documents are associated each with the specific dwellings. The document names are editable by clicking on the document title. As we alluded to in the previous section, this is where the majority of users will do their naming and file management. As you can see, the dwellings are now renamed back on the main Site Details page. We also indicate in green at the top whenever this information is updated so you can keep track of when your changes have actually gone through. Your non-residential project is now set up, with the relevant documents assigned to each dwelling. You are ready to proceed with filling in your documentation. That concludes this tutorial.